At 5:00 in the morning, somewhere in the Indian Ocean, an Iranian warship sends a single distress call. One explosion reported. Then silence. The IRIS Dena, a modern frigate, 136 sailors aboard, sinks in under 3 minutes before most of her crew can reach a hatch. What you're about to see is how it happened, who gave the order, and what the men on that ship never knew was coming. This is a documentary analysis of the real sinking of IRIS Dena on March 4, 2026, based on confirmed defense reporting and publicly available intelligence. 8 days before she went down, the IRIS Dena was the guest of honor. She had sailed into Visakhapatnam, India, flying her colors, her crew in dress uniform. Iran had been invited to exercise MILAN 2026, India's multinational naval showcase, 18 nations present. The Dena's sailors marched in a ceremonial parade on the pier. Her naval band performed. Officers from a dozen countries shook hands on her quarterdeck. The rules of the exercise required all participating ships to carry no live ammunition. The Dena complied. On February 26th, she departed Visakhapatnam and turned west toward home. Routine transit. Approximately 136 men aboard, officers, engineers, weapons crew, and the band members who had just played for an audience of allied navies. Early Western reports placed the number of sailors aboard at 87. Iranian authorities later revised the figure upward as the full crew manifest was confirmed. The final count: 136 on board, 104 killed, 32 survivors. Those numbers matter, because behind each one is a name the Iranian Navy has not fully released. Meanwhile, thousands of miles to the east, the United States Navy had a problem. The 2026 conflict had opened fast. US and Israeli strikes had already hit Iranian territory. CENTCOM needed options in the Indian Ocean: covert, surgical, deniable. Not a carrier strike group, not a 6-month deployment cycle. Something that could move quietly and arrive unannounced. The solution already existed. It was nuclear-powered, 360 feet long, and it had been operating somewhere in the Indo-Pacific when the order came through. USS Charlotte, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine, hull number SSN 766, commissioned in 1993. Her crew received new mission parameters. A compressed certification package was run while she was already at sea. Then Charlotte turned west, running at flank speed beneath the surface of the Indian Ocean. She was in position before the Dena left Indian waters. The Los Angeles class was built to hunt, specifically to hunt Soviet ballistic missile submarines beneath the North Atlantic, to find them before they could launch, and to kill them quietly. For decades, that mission stayed theoretical. No combat, no confirmed kills. The submarine force maintained its edge in silence. USS Charlotte carried the weapon that would end that silence, the Mark 48 ADCAP torpedo, advanced capability, wire-guided on initial run, then autonomous acoustic homing on terminal approach. Warhead: 650 pounds of PBXN 103 high explosive, designed to detonate beneath a ship's keel, not to punch a hole in the hull, but to break the ship's back. The hydraulic shockwave generated by an underkeel detonation transmits through the water column and into the structure of the vessel with a force no damage control team can respond to in time. The Dena had no reason to be running active sonar. She was on a transit home, not a combat patrol. And even if her crew had been on full alert, which they weren't, the Indian Ocean offers almost no anti-submarine capability to an Iranian frigate operating alone, far from friendly waters. Charlotte had every advantage that exists in submarine warfare: surprise, depth, silence, and knowledge of exactly where her target was. A P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft had been operating in the region, the same type that flew with the Dena just days before at Milan. Its acoustic sensors and radar would have mapped the frigate's exact position, speed, and heading. That data went to Charlotte's fire control team. The solution was set. The torpedoes were flooded into their tubes. If you want to understand how this kind of mission actually works and what comes next in this war, subscribe to Operation Fury. New operations every 3 days. The commanding officer gave the order. Charlotte fired. The first torpedo left the tube running at approximately 55 knots. On the IRIS Dena, nothing changed. The pre-dawn watch rotation was underway. Some of the crew were asleep. The band members who had played in Visakhapatnam 8 days earlier were likely in their bunks. No alarm had sounded, no radar contact, no sonar ping. The ocean around them was dark and quiet. The Mark 48 covered the distance in silence. The United States did not issue a warning before the strike. U.S. Indo-Pacific Command later confirmed this explicitly. Under the laws of armed conflict, the Dena was an active Iranian Navy combatant operating during a declared state of hostilities. Her flag, her hull number, her crew, all military. Whether she was sailing with her full weapons complement or not, she was not a civilian vessel. She was a warship. Whether that distinction was enough, given what was about to happen to the men inside her, is something the international community is still arguing about. The first torpedo detonated. An underkeel explosion doesn't sound the way most people imagine. It doesn't just blow a hole. The pressure wave moves faster than the hull can flex. The keel fractures, the midship section folds, and the compartments designed to keep a ship afloat become the chambers that trap water inside her. Damage control on a modern frigate assumes time. Time to seal hatches. Time to counter flood. Time to get personnel to their stations. The IRIS Dena had none of that. The second torpedo arrived seconds later. At 0508 SLST, the Dena transmitted her distress call. One explosion. That single transmission, broadcast on international maritime frequencies, is the last recorded communication from the ship. She was 19 nautical miles off the coast of Gale, Sri Lanka, international waters. She sank in under 3 minutes. To understand what 3 minutes means aboard a sinking warship, the Titanic took 2 hours and 40 minutes to go under after an iceberg tore open 5 compartments. The Dena had 2 torpedoes and no warning. Men who were asleep when the first detonation hit had perhaps 90 seconds to find a hatch, reach the main deck, and get clear of the suction as 4,000 tons of steel began her descent. Most didn't make it. The Sri Lanka Navy received the distress signal and immediately launched search and rescue operations. Their crews pulled 32 survivors from the water. They also recovered more than 80 bodies, including men still in their sleeping clothes. 20 sailors were never found. 104 dead. Among them, members of the Iranian Navy band, men who had been playing music at a friendly naval ceremony in India 8 days before. Men whose assignment to the Dena was ceremonial, not combat. Whether they were told, as their ship departed Visakhapatnam, that their country was already at war with the United States, that is not known. USS Charlotte, by then, had already changed course. No announcement of position, no surface contact. The submarine slipped deeper into the Indian Ocean and disappeared, exactly as she was designed to do. The commanding officer had just executed the first successful torpedo attack by a U.S. Navy submarine against an enemy surface vessel since August 14, 1945. The last day of the Pacific War. 81 years between shots. There is only one comparison that matters, and naval analysts reached for it within hours. May 2, 1982, the South Atlantic. The British nuclear attack submarine HMS Conqueror had been tracking the Argentine cruiser ARA General Belgrano for 30 hours when she fired 2 Mk-8 torpedoes, a weapon designed in 1927, still deadly in 1982. The Belgrano sank in 45 minutes. 323 Argentine sailors died. The attack was controversial. The cruiser was outside Britain's declared exclusion zone and reportedly heading away from the Falklands when she was hit. For 44 years after the Belgrano, no submarine sank another warship in battle. Then the Mark 48s hit the Dena. Iran lost one of its most capable frigates, a vessel representing a decade of domestic naval engineering, built without foreign assistance under years of sanctions. Her missile systems, her sensor suite, her combat data infrastructure, all of it on the floor of the Indian Ocean. On top of that, 9 additional Iranian naval vessels had been destroyed in the Gulf of Oman during the first week of open hostilities. The IRGC Navy was being systematically dismantled. But the strategic message of the Dena went beyond hardware. Submarines had always been the most feared weapon in any fleet. Silent, patient, nuclear-powered, globally deployable. But their role against surface ships had been theoretical for a generation. Charlotte proved it was real. Any Iranian vessel leaving port now had to calculate that an unseen Los Angeles-class submarine might already be tracking it. You don't need press releases for that kind of deterrence. The wreck on the floor of the Indian Ocean does the work. The political fallout landed hardest somewhere unexpected. New Delhi. India had hosted the Dena. Indian officers had stood on her quarterdeck. Then a U.S. submarine torpedoed a vessel returning from an Indian-hosted exercise, 44 nautical miles from Sri Lanka's shore, and India didn't say a word for 24 hours. Former Indian Naval Chief Admiral Arun Prakash called the attack shocking. The country that had declared itself guardian of the Indian Ocean couldn't protect its own guest. Do you think the U.S. was right to sink the Dena, given the circumstances? Drop your answer below and tell us which Iranian naval asset gets targeted next. In Tehran, Foreign Minister Araghchi was direct. Mark my words, the U.S. will come to bitterly regret the precedent it has set. That language wasn't just anger, it was a signal. Because if the United States had just demonstrated that its submarine force could reach any ocean and sink any ship without warning, then Iran needed to find a way to reach back. Not in the Indian Ocean, not against submarines, against something American that couldn't dive. The 32 survivors arrived in Gala with nothing. No gear, no warning. Many in the clothes they had slept in. The Sri Lanka Navy transported them to Gala National Hospital, where they were treated for blast injuries, burns, and severe hypothermia. The Iranian government arranged their repatriation. The bodies that were recovered were unloaded from vehicles at the hospital in the days that followed, documented by wire photographers whose images circulated globally before Tehran could manage the narrative. The 20 sailors never recovered are still down there. Their names have not all been released. The Iranian government has not published a full casualty list. Families in Tehran, Isfahan, Shiraz, cities far from any coast, cities where the sea is something distant and abstract, are waiting for information that may never come in the form they need it. A father waiting for confirmation, a mother who keeps checking state media, a wife who knows what the silence means but hasn't said it out loud yet. The band members who marched in Visakhapatnam 8 days before the attack. Their instruments are down there too, somewhere on the bottom of the Indian Ocean, at a depth no Iranian recovery asset can reach, alongside the men who played them. That is what 104 dead looks like when the ship sinks in 3 minutes, and the submarine is already gone before the rescue crews arrive. The United States Navy called it a successful combat operation. They were not wrong. Iran called it a war crime. India called it an embarrassment. The U.S. Navy called it a successful combat operation. All 3 of them are right about something. Tehran promised it will answer. The question isn't whether that response comes, it's where and against what target Iran decides to make the United States feel the cost of the precedent Charlotte set. That scenario is already being planned, and it's coming next on Operation Fury. Subscribe and hit the bell. Iran's response is already in motion, and you need to see what happens when they strike back. See you on the next operation.